Hello everybody, welcome to episode 8 of the Foxhole feed. It is Wednesday. Happy Wednesday to everybody. Before I get into the news, I'd like to thank everyone who's watched, subscribed, liked, commented, etc. for the support of this channel. It's greatly appreciated. Thanks for helping my channel get over 1,500 views in a little over 3 weeks. So I'm very happy about that. Thank you so much. Now on to episode 8. So this episode is filled chock full of lots of rumor news. So let's get into it here. A rumor that came out of NeoGAF, very interesting one, has lots of solid base to it, is Sony Bend might be creating an open world horror game for the PlayStation 4. Now, what we know for a fact, and I'm stating anything that we 100% know to be real, is that they're confirmed to be making a PlayStation 4 game. The technical director has stated, in quotations, he wants to push the PlayStation 4 to where it's never been before. We know that from their listings of job openings that they're looking for someone who works with Unreal Engine 4. We know that they're working with Epic to make the Unreal Engine 4 look really good in the PlayStation 4 at their next title. He states that they want people to be blown away by what they're going to do with their studio. The innovation coming from this technology that just keeps us really buzzing. So there's lots of excitement going on at Sony's Bend Studio. It's very clear that what they're talking about is likely not MLB The Show. As this team does MLB The Show, I don't think that's what they're referring to, or part of their team does. So I don't believe that's what they're referring to when any of these come up, because it doesn't sound like it's of an existing IP. Now, this game comes out of NeoGAF, this rumor anyway. I got some screenshots right here so you guys could sort of check out, because this was showed over a year ago that it was sort of leaked out. Now, you have lots of horror images. There's a landscape background, which looks to be plausible that they're talking about a really open world one, because the concept art seems to mirror this. Need I remind everybody that Horizon Zero Dawn was leaked the exact same way. We knew it would be called Horizon. We didn't know the subtitle Zero Dawn, but we knew it would be called Horizon. So, and we had all the screenshots to tell us that there were going to be robot dinosaurs in the game. So this could be the same way. Lots of things have leaked out in the past before, and this most likely could not be any different. I mean, we could all be wrong about this, but I'm leaning this more on the it's probably is side than probably isn't side. Now, a rumor, sort of a rumor, not really a rumor, most likely inevitable. Stop me if you heard this one. Square is going to be porting a title. Now, Prima Games accidentally leaks out screenshots of their strategy guide for Final Fantasy XII in HD, but the game was never released in HD. So, I mean, it's very clear that Square is going to be announcing very soon Final Fantasy XII in HD. Now, what's weird is I would assume that TGS would have been placed that this happened. In fact, I was actually very much expecting that game to be announced. Could they be announcing it somewhere else? They could be announcing it at the Sony's Paris trade show. They could be announcing this at the the PlayStation X event. Who knows where they could be announcing this at? They could not even have this at an event, because to them this is just a port. It's not some big extravaganza that deserves an entire press conference. So it may not even need an event to be announced. Now, this is not the first time that somebody has leaked something regarding a remaster of Final Fantasy XII. It was actually leaked through Amazon before. In fact, this is maybe the third place that's leaked an existence of Final Fantasy XII having a remaster. But at this point, Final Fantasy XII remaster is 100% inevitable. That's not even rumor. It's happening. That's as much as a rumor as they're going to release another Assassin's Creed, Call of Duty, and Madden type deal. It's like those companies do that and Square ports titles. So this is most likely going to come to the PlayStation 3. And if their history, is the same, it's probably also going to come to PlayStation 4 as well. Now, the next rumor I'm talking about here, I believe, is plausible. I'm actually surprised that it's not gaining as much traction or ground as I would assume it would have gained like all the way back in August when like some of these things were sort of reported and sort of touched on. Now, earlier, a Reddit user a couple days ago showed a screenshot of him playing Siren, or a screenshot of Siren being shown on the PlayStation Live area, and it shows it says Siren PlayStation 2. If you guys aren't familiar, Siren is a PlayStation 2 horror game made by Sony Japan. Now, this game only came out on the PlayStation 2. There is a PlayStation 3 version of the game that's a completely different one, but this specifically says Siren, as in the first Siren, and it says PlayStation 2 next to it, and then, and it's showing it on the PlayStation Live thing. Now, could be fake, could not be true at all, could you, just a little bit, of somebody just, pulling some nice Photoshop LOLs on us. But it has a lot of validity to it. Oh, excuse me. So it has a lot of validity to it, and I believe that it's very likely that the screenshot we're seeing might be really legitimate. Now, there's been a PEGI rating that is for Twisted Metal Black, for Ape Escape, and for Dark Cloud 2 for the PlayStation 4. In PEGI ratings, ESRB, those have all been classic, reveals of titles existing because of that arduous rating process they have to go to. Those rating scales many times have leaked out games before. This could be one of those times where it's leaking out an existence of a game appearing. Now, when I tell you that this appeared back in August, around like late August when this actually appeared, it appeared from the bundle for Star Wars. Now, the Star Wars bundle, if you guys aren't familiar with the PlayStation 4 Star Wars bundle with the Darth Vader looking system, it's stated to actually have enhanced versions of Star Wars Racer Revenge, of Jedi Starfighter, and Star Wars Bounty Hunter available to purchase separately through the PlayStation Store. The issue with this is the system we're talking about is a PlayStation 4, and these don't exist on the store. And these also don't exist on PlayStation. Well, they probably exist on PlayStation Now, but they're not. You don't download them through PlayStation Now. PlayStation Now is a service that streams titles. You do not download titles. So to have a voucher to purchase something, it doesn't really make sense. Oh, you have a download to purchase the stream? I don't know how that would make any sense. Now, even if we were to state that, maybe the person who was streaming this was streaming it to PlayStation Now, and that's how we got that screen cap of Siren, the issue is you can't actually live stream PlayStation Now games. Now, I don't use PlayStation Now myself, and I had to fact check it just to make sure that these things couldn't be done, to explain away how this is happening, but it's not on there, so it can't be done. From what I've read on Sony's site and all over the place is that you cannot stream a PlayStation Now game. So the screenshot we're looking at, if real, is not just revealing that the game, is going to exist in terms of support. It's revealing, that it's going to be as a download. Now, it could be several things. It could be emulation, which I sort of doubt that if they're going the emulation route. It could be that they're going to have it as a download, which I more likely feel it's going to be that. Or it could be PlayStation Now related, but I actually think it could most likely be both. I won't be surprised if they confirm that you can download these titles, but also go back and say, yeah, you could also get them on PlayStation Now. But I'm going to lean towards you could get them on PlayStation Now and they're downloadable versus the emulation route, simply because the PEGI 13, the PEGI title is revealing the existence of these other games. And with BC, that's unnecessary with backwards compatibility or emulation to somehow make a new rating somewhere else. That doesn't really make any sense. So something's telling me at their Paris Games Week, they're just going to announce that these titles will be available as enhanced editions or enhanced downloads or whatever. I don't think it will be native support, as the titles that we're releasing don't really sound like you would do that if you were announcing native support anyway. So that's a megaton rumor too, and I feel like it's everything that's coming out through various other articles are sort of reconfirming and reiterating what I believed all the way on the 17th, was that the system in some way, shape, or form was getting those games. But that's not really that shocking or surprising that the titles will be released as download. Not that surprising if you consider PlayStation 3 has just a slew of titles available for demand in terms of downloading them instantly. Now, a couple days ago, interview went on with the Q Games director at Tokyo Game Show regarding the Tomorrow Children. Now, if you don't know this title, it's set in a basically future Russia in an alternate time period, about some communist kids essentially mining and building and getting jobs and doing all these different, crazy things. Now, the interview that takes place during Tokyo Game Show that was released a couple days ago by him, he states that it's open world now and that you're able to build the world now versus the way it was before. He says you could build the entire town now. He states that it's sort of like an MMO, sort of like an RTS, which I've got that from watching footage of the game for a while now. He confirms that it is in an alternate timeline about 100 years or so into the future. He goes on to talk about the game's amazing lighting. If you guys haven't seen it, here's a screenshot right here of it. The thing I think is so weird about this game is it looks realistic on top of having a weird cartoony type of character models, but on top of having like realistic lighting and shadows and textures. It looks very, very impressive. So definitely you get a Pixar vibe from looking at it. He goes on to state that he's interested in PlayStation VR. Now, I don't think that this means that this game will get an update in VR. I think he's just merely saying that he's interested in the headset, as many, developers are. He's probably just saying that as a personal thing. I don't really put much stock into him stating that. And he states that if you like Animal Crossing, you'll like the Tomorrow Children, which I actually think I've seen similarities to Animal Crossing to this game, if not how you physically do things anyway. Just how the models sort of look like remind me of Animal Crossing in terms of its not the art direction, but the character designs look similar in terms of big head, little arms type of shit going down. But definitely keep on a lookout for this game. I'm definitely going to be covering lots of it. I like all of Q Games' work. They're one of my favorite independent studios. So be on the lookout for this game. Now, a couple days ago, Sony Worldwide Studios president Shuhei Yoshida was talking about PlayStation VR, or an interview regarding PlayStation, the newly named PlayStation VR, in which he states almost all Japanese publishers, or I would assume major publishers, are all working on VR. He states the likes of Final Fantasy XV, Danganronpa 3, Hatsune Miyoki, all have some sort of VR version or VR option coming to the PlayStation 4. Now, when asked about how the launch, or how they're encouraging smaller developers to work on launch games for the PlayStation VR's launch next year, he says that he still got lots of time to encourage small developers to start now if they have the right idea. Now, I'm okay with how the launch might be. He states that he's very optimistic in terms of the variety of games that will be available at launch, and I'm inclined to sort of believe him. I understand how this launch could be pretty good. I understand how support for it could also be pretty good if you consider the way systems are now. Unlike last generation where, Sony was sort of getting their leg up on digital and, Nintendo's is still non-existent, and Microsoft was already far ahead of everyone in terms of having a solid infrastructure made for distribution. It was an area in which the smaller developers weren't really accustomed to releasing titles on digital in terms of self-publishing, I would say. So you didn't really have that many indies. Even then, early then, Xbox Live had a whole bunch of rules you had to jump through to release independent titles on that platform. Prior to that, you couldn't even be an independent and release it on there. You had to have a publisher before that would happen. But this generation, it's all different. Even Microsoft's previous rules that they had to tone down because it's clear that you can't just ignore independents or treat them like, second class developers any longer. Independent titles now are completely commonplace on console, and more they're being seen just like you would see any other game. It's the way it is currently on Steam. On Steam, you'll have titles that are self-published, and then you'll have your AAA titles, but I don't believe there's a huge distinction. You could have a title that is a independent title right next to a AAA title, and the reality is, I don't know if you could, spot the knot, so to speak, and see whether or not this is real or not. Or whether or not it's of quality. Let's take, for example, a company like CD Projekt Red. When they released the first Witcher, you wouldn't just be like, okay, well, that's an indie RPG. Yes, it's an independent game, but The Witcher was being held in regard to your Elder Scrolls and Dragon Age and Mass Effect. It was being put up into a high pedestal against all the other RPGs released that generation. It was never singled out as, air quotations, indie. It was seen as an RPG like everyone else. So the reality is, a good game's a good game. Whether or not somebody's independent or not, I don't think matters. And this generation, starting to show that. To drive home my point on how it has to do with this launch of VR, is that I don't think VR will have a difficult time launching this generation compared to, I would say, generations prior. If you consider it's going to have a wave of support by independents who are looking to make themselves different, who are looking to be that title that's, way different than the others, to differentiate themselves, to seem, a lot more different. Because indies have this on the PlayStation to stand out. I see it getting lots of support. I see it being used a lot in the future. I see many indie companies and many indie developers coming out and using it. I mean, they'll use it on PC. We have gamers who are making certain titles into Oculus Rift that their own developers aren't even supporting. So you have right now, if you go online, you could find Skyrim and Fallout and all these different games that are supported on Oculus Rift just through fans, doing it themselves. And a lot of them not even being supported by the publisher, but the fans are doing it themselves. So I have to question how difficult it would be to implement something like this if fans are doing it with some of these titles right now. I don't know if it's that hard to implement. I see indies using this to set themselves apart and make their titles really stand out. So I think that they'll have a good launch, and I think they'll be okay. I think as long as you have creative developers out there, someone's going to be out there making something that's going to be unique to this. The only problem I see for them in the foreseeable future, to be honest, is marketing. This is a very difficult thing to market. In terms of marketing a real experience, I think it's easy to market it if you're just marketing the concept of VR. You put it on and then you just show a screen of something happening, of course. But in terms of real grassroots marketing, it's hard to understand. It's hard to convey what's happening inside that little headset to a person at home. You could show an advertising of a person jumping around and doing stuff and, have them smiling and having fun like they look like in those stupid ass ads. But that's going to be something that's going to be hard for most to understand what's happening in there. And now I'd like to end episode 8 on some Persona 5 news. Famitsu interviews director of the Persona series, Katsuhiro Hoshino, and has a lot to say. There's a lot of interesting things that I took from this. I won't bore you with the story parts. A lot of the story parts seem like it's very difficult to translate some of it. So even though it's through Google Translate, a lot of these things I don't think translate properly. It says let me give you an example. It says heroes and his friends are troubled respectively. There is a promotion or portion that emulates that eliminates the whereabouts. It's all these weird. It's really hard to read. Though it is translated, it's clearly not properly translated. It needs a human to decipher those things there. The takeaway I take from this is, from the interesting tidbits anyway, I'll show you a picture here of one of the characters called Morgana. This is a little cat friend that is with you. He reveals that this little cat friend is going to live with you. I mean, which I assumed in some of the little tidbits in the trailer show him or her. It looks like it's a girl actually, but shows her in the apartment with you when you're working out in some other areas. So I could see that being a thing, sort of like how the dorm was in Persona 3. A thing I really liked from this interview was he states that the app is what the team uses to sneak into the other reality. So like in Persona 3, where you were able to go to the dark zone or the dark hour by basically just going to the high school. You didn't even go to the high school. You basically you warped there, right? Midnight came and they just dragged you there, and that was it. You didn't physically go. But I like that this phone app apparently is what's being used to go to the dark hour. It goes on to state how the other mirrors, how the other main characters are, who they are to each other anyway. It states that Ryoji's persona name is Captain Kid with 2 D's, and what the girl's name is, her persona name is Carmen. Morgana the cat's persona name is Zoro, and I think I can understand that with the little mask that it has on. And Yusuke's character, which is the other guy that's there with the blonde hand, is Goemon. So it goes on to explain some parts of the social stuff, but it's difficult to understand because of the translation. I'll link it on the bottom. If you care to take a read, help yourself. It's been an episode of episode 8 of the Foxhole feed. I'll be back scheduled probably around the same time on Friday with all the news that comes up either today, tomorrow, Friday morning, what have you. Like always, click the like, subscribe, share, comment, whatevs, and that's it.
Стоп! Это кафе! Стоп! Прием!